Biomed, Nexus Daily Updates, your essential biotech, medtech, and pharma recap. No noise, just what matters. TLDR AstraZeneca licensed ex-China rights to an inhaled respiratory drug from Sino Biopharmaceutical, its second China deal this week. Coming days before the July 17th congressional deadline, it answers the question we posed Monday. The deal flow is not slowing. Bristol Myers Squibb's Krazati stumbled, with the drug plus cetuximab producing shorter survival than chemotherapy in a colorectal cancer trial. It caps a week that reshuffled the KRA's field. GSK walked away from its $2 2B neurodegeneration pact with Electa after both drugs in the partnership failed in the clinic. Early-stage venture financing is on track for its lowest dollar total in years, even as billion-dollar deals boom. The barbell is real. Analysts flagged high nausea and vomiting in the Hengrui and Kylera oral obesity data, a caution on yesterday's China Phase 3 win. Executive takeaway? On Monday, we set the week's question: would the industry keep signing China deals into the teeth of the congressional probe, with the July 17th deadline bearing down? We have our answer, and it is emphatic. AstraZeneca alone signed 2 China deals this week. Monday, it was the CSPC kidney collaboration worth up to $1.77b. Today, it licensed ex-China rights to an inhaled respiratory drug from Sino Biopharmaceutical. 2 deals, 1 week, from a company that watched the House Select Committee send letters to 5 of its peers. AstraZeneca is not among the 5 named, which is surely part of why it feels free to move. But the signal is unmistakable. 8 days before the deadline, with the political temperature rising, the pharma industry is treating Chinese science as too valuable to pause. This is exactly the read we gave in June and reiterated Wednesday. The deals already signed are safe. The political risk applies to the future, and the friction gets priced and paid rather than avoided. The deal flow bends around the obstacle. It does not stop. The other story worth closing the week on is what happened to Kras. We spent the week watching this field reshuffle in real time. Monday, Genentech's divarasib beat the approved standard in G12C lung cancer. Wednesday, Revolution showed 3 RAS drugs working in pancreatic cancer. And today, Bristol Myers Squibb's Krazati stumbled, with the drug plus cetuximab delivering shorter survival than chemotherapy in colorectal cancer. Put those together, and the picture is clear. The first-generation Kras G12C drugs, Amgen's Lumakras and BMS's Krazati, are looking increasingly vulnerable, while the next wave, Genentech's divarasib and Revolution's RAS-on franchise, is pulling ahead. 40 years of undruggable, and now the field is moving fast enough that this week alone rearranged the leaderboard. If you hold Krazati or Lumakras exposure, this was not a good week. Read full analysis. China and policy AstraZeneca just signed its second China deal in a week, and that answers the question everyone was asking. As AstraZeneca licensed ex-China rights to TQC3721, an inhaled PDE3/4 inhibitor for chronic respiratory diseases, from Hong Kong-listed Sino Biopharmaceutical, according to the pharma letter. It is AstraZeneca's second China deal this week, following the CSPC kidney disease collaboration we covered Monday, and its latest in a long run of Chinese licensing moves. The timing is the story. The House Select Committee on China has responses due July 17th from Merck, AbbVie, Lilly, Pfizer, and BMS over their China clinical trials, and the Biotech Investment National Security Act would add Treasury review to deals like this one. AstraZeneca was not named in the probe, which gives it room to keep moving while the 5 named companies stay quiet ahead of the deadline. The broader point is the one we have tracked all week. The industry is not slowing its China engagement. It is pricing in the political risk and continuing. Oncology Krazati stumbled, and the KRS leaderboard just got rewritten in a single week. BMY Bristol, Myers Squibb's Krazati adagrasib, combined with cetuximab, produced shorter median overall and progression-free survival than chemotherapy in a colorectal cancer trial, according to Biospace. It is a real setback for one of the two first-generation KRAS G12C drugs, and the timing sharpens the contrast. This week alone, Genentech's divarasib beat the approved standard in G12C lung cancer, and Revolution showed 3 RAS drugs working in pancreatic cancer. The first generation, Lumakras and Krazati, launched to enormous expectations in 2021 and 2022 and have underdelivered commercially. Now, the clinical gap to the next generation is widening in public. For BMS, which paid billions for Mirati to acquire Krazati, the colorectal setback pressures an asset that was already struggling to meet its original promise. Neuroscience GSK gave up on a $2 neuro bet after both drugs failed. GSK walked away from its up to $2 neurodegeneration partnership with Electa after both drugs in the collaboration flunked their clinical trials, according to Fierce Biotech. The pact centered on progranulin-boosting antibodies aimed at frontotemporal dementia and related conditions. Both failed to deliver. It is another entry in a brutal stretch for neuroscience, following Merck killing its Phase 2 Alzheimer's program for futility on Wednesday. Neurodegeneration remains the graveyard it has long been, where promising biology and clean mechanisms keep failing to translate into patient benefit. For GSK under Luke Meals, cutting a losing program quickly fits the disciplined capital allocation the company has shown all year. For Elector, losing its marquee partnership on failed data is close to an existential problem. Capital markets. The money is booming at the top and drying up at the bottom. 2 facts from this week describe the barbell shape of biotech financing. At one end, 4 M&A deals this year have each cleared 10 Bs in guaranteed proceeds, matching all of 2025, with Vertex and Crinetics the latest. At the other end, early-stage venture financing is on track for its lowest dollar total in years, according to Biospace, as funders keep avoiding risky early bets. Capital is flowing freely to de-risked, late-stage or commercial assets, and thinning out for the preclinical and early clinical companies that feed the pipeline years from now. It is great news if you have a Phase 3 asset or an approved drug. It is a warning if you are a founder trying to raise a Series A on a promising idea. The near term looks flush, the long-term pipeline is being underfunded, and that bill comes due later. The Week in Review Monday, Wegovy won UK approval in MASH, pushing GLP-1s into liver disease. AstraZeneca signed its first China deal of the week. We flagged the July 17th deadline as the week's thread. Tuesday, Genentech's divarasib beat the approved standard in KRAS G12C lung cancer. Novartis bought Mirix for up to $1. 5B for a next-generation ADC payload. Anthropic's CEO tempered AI hype. Wednesday, Revolution showed 3 RAS drugs working in pancreatic cancer. We corrected our own Ipsen correction. AstraZeneca's China deal count kept climbing. Thursday, Vertex bought Crinetics for $10 billion to enter endocrinology and got beaten to market in kidney disease by Vera the same week. Kylera's obesity pill won in China. Friday, AstraZeneca signed its second China deal of the week. Krazati stumbled in colorectal cancer. GSK walked from its Electa pact. Red, full analysis, Biomed Nexus. Pro, institutional intelligence brief after July 17th. 3 scenarios. The House Select Committee's deadline is a week out, and this week's deal flow tells us how the industry is positioning. Here is how we see it playing out. Scenario 1. Political theatre. The 5 named companies respond with detailed compliance narratives. The committee holds a hearing or 2. Nothing legislative passes this session. and the China deal flow accelerates once the immediate spotlight moves on. This is the most likely near-term outcome, and AstraZeneca's willingness to sign 2 deals this week suggests much of the industry already believes it. Scenario 2, slow squeeze. The Biotech Investment National Security Act advances, adding Treasury review to China licensing deals. It does not ban anything, but it adds months of process, legal cost, and disclosure to every transaction. Deal flow continues but slows, and the political premium on China assets rises meaningfully. This is the moderate case, and probability is climbing as the issue gains bipartisan traction. Scenario 3, hard decoupling. Congress passes binding restrictions that meaningfully limit new China licensing. This would reshape the pipeline math for the whole industry, since Chinese science now feeds a large share of Western late-stage assets. We put this as least likely in the near term because the economic and clinical case for the deals is strong, and the lobbying against restriction is fierce, but it is not zero, and the trajectory is toward more restriction rather than less. Our base case remains Scenario 1, bleeding into Scenario 2. The deals already signed are safe. New deals continue at a rising political cost. The companies that built early China pipelines captured the best value, and latecomers will pay more, in both dollars and scrutiny. What this week proved is that even under active investigation, the industry's revealed preference is to keep going. The Kraz leaderboard. After a wild week, 1 week rearranged the entire Kraz landscape. Here is where the major players stand. Genentech's divarasib is the week's biggest winner, beating the approved standard in G12C lung cancer and establishing itself as the potential best-in-class G12C drug. Revolution Medicines is the franchise leader, with daraxonrasib heading for a CNPV filing, zoldonrasib feeding 2 phase 3 trials with response rates up to 82% in first-line pancreatic cancer, and RM055 behind them. Between them, these two now define the frontier. The first generation is under pressure. Amgen's Lumakras opened the category in 2021 but has posted modest commercial results and now faces a superior G12C competitor in divarasib. BMS's Krazati, acquired through the multi-billion-dollar Mirati purchase, just delivered a colorectal setback with the cetuximab combination underperforming chemotherapy, compounding an already disappointing trajectory. The read for anyone with exposure. The value is migrating from the first generation to the next. Divarasib and the Revolution franchise are where the momentum is. Lumakras and Krazati are increasingly the incumbents to be displaced rather than the leaders to beat. For BMS specifically, the Krazati setback raises hard questions about the return on the Mirati acquisition. The Kraz story that took 40 years to start is now moving fast enough to reshuffle in a single week, and the direction of travel is away from the pioneers and toward the second wave. The barbell and why the thin middle matters. Biotech financing has taken on a barbell shape, and the empty middle is the part worth worrying about. At the heavy end, capital is abundant. 4 separate 10B plus M&A deals this year, structured financings like BridgeBio's 1B, and a healthy IPO window for de-risked names. At the light end, early-stage venture is on track for its lowest dollar total in years. This matters because early-stage financing is the seed corn of the whole industry. The Phase 3 assets that Big Pharma is paying $10 billion to acquire today were early-stage bets 5 to 10 years ago. If the current early-stage drought persists, the pipeline of de-risked assets available for acquisition in the early 2030s thins out, and the M&A wave that looks so healthy today runs short of targets tomorrow. The dynamic is rational at the individual investor level and dangerous in aggregate. Each funder is sensibly avoiding risk in an uncertain environment, chasing the de-risked assets everyone else wants. But collectively, the industry is underinvesting in the early science that produces the next generation of drugs. For founders, the message is grim in the near term. Raising a Series A on promising preclinical data is harder than it has been in years. For the industry, the thin middle is a structural problem that the booming top-end masks but does not solve. The flush headlines and the starved early stage are two sides of the same risk aversion, and the second side is the one that bites later. Catalyst calendar date event tickers. July 17 Palmer responses due to House China Trials Probe MRK, ABBV, LLY, PFE, BMY July 31, Section 232, Pharma tariffs effective, large companies. Multiple August 2026 Replimune RP1, FDA, response, Ripple August 22 Capricor, Duramio Cell, PDUFA, AdCom pending, Capillate, July FDA Advisory Committee expected on Capricor, Duramio Cell, Caprimminent Revolution. Medicines CNPV filing RVM Diminent Lilly, Foundayo T2D filing under CNPV LLYQ3, 2026 Revolution, Darixon Racib approval projected Truist, RVM DQ3 2026 Unicure, Huntington's gene therapy under review QREQ3, 2026 Regenex BIO, Duchenne gene therapy, BLA filing RGNXQ3, 2026 Teva Emalex, close expected Teva Q3s, 2026 GS Connuvalent close expected GSK-Q3, 2026 ABV Apogee, close expected ABV Q3, 2026 Vertex Crinetics, close expected VRTX Q3, 2026 IPSN Cartos, and Ipsen Memo, closes expected IPN 226 Sidus Hamatayan EB, and Niladal KB, PDUFAs, ROS1 ALK GSK, NU VLH2, 2026 Merck, SAK TMT Global Filing, expected MRKH2 2026 Foundeo, T2D Regulatory Action expected LLYH2 2026 Ajax Registrational Trial Initiation, expected LLY 2026 Triumph H2 and Triumph H3 readouts, Retay True Tide, Y Sept 19 Ultragenics, UX1111 PDUFA Sanfilippo Type A, Rare Sept 29 Section 232 Pharma Tariffs, effective all others, Multiple DEC 2026 Mineralis, Lorundrostat, PDUFAM Li S 2027 Rita True Tide, launch anticipated, BMO, LY DEC, SEV Lilly Investment Community Meeting LLA AstraZeneca signed 2 China deals in a week and answered the question we opened with. The probe is not slowing anyone. The crass leaderboard got rewritten, with Krazati stumbling as Divarasib and Revolution pull ahead, and GSK cut a losing Neurobet. Next week brings the July 17 deadline itself. Have a good weekend. What are you watching? Reply to this email. Visit the Pro Hub Read. Full article. Is your company listed in the Biomed Nexus directory? 21 known 4 companies across 14 categories. Claim or upgrade your listing. Sponsorship slots for 2026 are limited. See packages and pricing. New Biomed Nexus. Signals, weekly. Sales intelligence for life sciences. BD teams. Learn more.